Well, we're just over 2 hours into it. Eskom announcing a little earlier that it's implementing stage 2 load shedding until later this evening. In fact, around 11 o'clock, the power utility says the system lost generation capacity because it's under a lot of strain. Well, we've heard that before. Let's make some more sense of this. Energy commentator, analyst Roger Lilley is with us via Skype. Mr. Lilley, good evening to you. The statement from Eskom a little earlier today saying this was done to prevent, and I quote, a total collapse of the grid. How close were we, do you think?
Good evening, Jeremy, and good evening, South Africa tonight. Yes, look, the situation is quite dire. We've been on a knife edge for a long time. The amount of generation that South Africa requires is about 30,000 megawatts. On paper, we have something like 42 to 45,000. The problem is that we obviously don't have that amount because 12,500 is out, according to Eskom's report today, which means that we're right on that knife edge now. And, you know, with the rainy weather for the last 2 days, our solar systems are also not providing the electricity that they should. So we have a bit of wind. It looks like we're running on the diesel generators again, which is extremely expensive. Eskom really is doing its best to prevent this from happening.
Let me suggest to you, Mr. Lilley, that this is what most people, I guess myself included, find utterly baffling and also annoying, that it is suddenly sprung on us with no prior warning. All of a sudden, around about 2 o'clock this afternoon, out comes the communique from Eskom saying, stand by, we're going to stage 2. What happens in order for that announcement to be made? Why is there no earlier warning?
I think there's no earlier warning because all of a sudden equipment starts to fail and you have what is known as a domino effect. So one piece of equipment fails, overloads another piece of equipment, which then trips out, and so you get this domino effect happening. And the only way they can prevent that from rattling right through the system and shutting the entire system down with no electricity for anyone ever is to simply start disconnecting load, which we call load shedding.
A little earlier this year, in fact, just a few weeks ago, Eskom saying confidently, boldly, that there would be no more load shedding until March. This promise was made after another unit at Medupi came online. All of a sudden, we're confronted with this. Again, I put the question to you. What went wrong so quickly? Medupi
is not delivering the sorts of power it's supposed to deliver. Kusile is years behind. These new build projects are a major problem, and Eskom has spent so much money and so much manpower on these new builds, which are now not supplying the power they should, that they don't have either the manpower or the money to spend on the older, more reliable power stations had they been maintained properly, which they have not now been done. So the whole system is very, very shaky and very unreliable.
But a couple of weeks ago, they were saying that wasn't the case. There would be no load shedding until March. It seems like the right hand doesn't know what the left hand is doing.
Yes, and I think you're right, Jeremy. I also suspect that there's a certain amount of concern within the various generation, the power station managers. They don't want to communicate the bad news, it seems.
Why would they not want to do that? What are they trying to hide?
I don't know, maybe they're just hoping for the best. Maybe they obviously didn't foresee the sudden rainy weather. It's very interesting because if you remember last November we also had load shedding. Well, now it's December, but there you are.
That's a worrying assertion, Mr. Lilley, that you're making. Is this just speculation as far as you're concerned, or is this something that you've been reliably told about?
No, it's not. It is total speculation on my part.
All right. And just a final question then. Are we into uncharted waters tonight? Could there be more? Could we go beyond stage 2 if the situation perpetuates?
Yes, indeed. The only lever that Eskom has in order to control and keep some resemblance of the electricity system running properly is indeed load shedding. To put it simply, the load has to match the available generating capacity. And the available generating capacity is declining through aging, unreliable equipment, and even new equipment which is unreliable and is not working properly, through faulty design or faulty construction, whatever that may be. The reality is that the generation capacity that we should have as a country, we do not have, and so we have to match our load to what capacity we do have. And the only way we can do that is by trimming load. We call that load shedding.
And with respect, Mr. Lilley, we know all of this. The question is, in the short term, as we run up to Christmas, is it likely that we're going to have more load shedding, and as I said to you, beyond stage 2?
Purely speculatively, I can say it depends on how much diesel they've stored. It depends on what the water capacity is at the pumped storage sites. If those are adequate, then those systems are going to be used to keep as many of the lights on as possible. But the moment we start running out of diesel, or the moment that the upper dam runs low, then Eskom can do nothing else but restrict load even further. And that might mean more days, or it might mean deeper levels or higher levels of load shedding. In other words, from stage 2 to maybe 3 or even 4. But nobody outside of Eskom can really give us a concrete answer.
No, I acknowledge that, and I do appreciate that. I understand that you're commentating from the side on this one. Just very quickly, to the best of your knowledge, do we have enough diesel stored then?
If you remember, there was a promise made by the chairperson, who said that he would make sure that it would never happen again that we don't have sufficient diesel stored. So let's just hope that he has kept his word.
All right, Roger Lilley, energy analyst and commentator. Thank you.